we don't have a strategy yet. I think what I've seen in some of the news reports suggests that folks are getting a little further ahead of where we're at than we currently are. When a finalized plan is presented to me by the Pentagon, then I will share it with the American people. It's not, we don't yet have a complete strategy because it requires commitments on the part of the Iraqis as well about how recruitment takes place, how that training takes place. And so the details of that are not yet worked out.
That is President Obama from yesterday and then again from last August. No complete strategy to beat ISIS. Now, why is that? Bill O'Reilly laid out two possible explanations for why there is no full plan in place, even as of today.
Only two possible scenarios here, two. First, that the U.S. military is grossly incompetent and can't come up with a plan to defeat a terror group comprised of about 30,000 individuals. Or two, that the President of the United States lacks the will to defeat an enemy that threatens every American. Talking Points is throwing in with option number two. Mr. Obama simply does not see the urgency. It does not have the fire to take on terrorists who are slaughtering thousands of innocent people.
All right, Bernard Whitman now, former pollster for President Bill Clinton and president of CEO of Whitman Inside Strategies. Rich Lowry, editor of National Review and a Fox News contributor as well. Gentlemen, good day to both of you. He does not see the urgency. That's the case O'Reilly makes. Does he or does he not?
No, he doesn't see the urgency. He really doesn't have any interest in doing this because it requires, in some level, getting back in Iraq on the ground. He has zero appetite for doing that. His whole presidency has premised on the idea of getting out of Iraq. It would be too intellectually and politically difficult for him to throw that all the way and say, actually, we're going to have some trainers and advisors on the ground to put a steel rod in the Iraqi army.
Do you have a problem with that?
Yes, it's a huge problem, and not just on the ground there in Iraq, but ISIS gains prestige with the perception that it is winning, and that's how it's able to win recruits around the Western world and here in the United States. So the problem with this threat, it doesn't stay over there, it comes over here, and that's why it has to be dealt with.
Bernard.
But we do have advisors and trainers on the ground. The fundamental problem is we do not have a partner who is ready, willing, and able to take up this fight, meaning the Iraqi central government. They have shown themselves time and again to be completely opposed or unable, and I think opposed, to including the Sunnis, including the Kurds in a way that actually would put together a decent coalition. And so we're left with three sort of bad options. One is to continue down this policy of trying to prod and cajole them into doing so. Two would be to completely take over defense of the country, which would require an enormous investment in American lives and money, something the United States Americans have refused time and again. And the third, which is a policy that I would actually support, is to double down on arming the Kurds.
Well, the Kurds, you can arm the Kurds and they'll defend Kurdistan, but they're not going to invade the rest of Iraq. And if they did, it would create a sectarian war.
All the arms have not gone there. You know, back to Bernard's numbers here, there are 0 Iraqi soldiers being trained at the Al-Assad Air Base in Anbar. The Pentagon says there are 2,598 in training at other locations in Iraq. We have more than 3,000 Americans on the ground there. We already outnumber the number of Iraqis we are training to date. Now, there was also a report that suggests up to 9,000 have been trained already, but still, those numbers, Rich, will not do the job. And you can make the case that the Iraqis, it is their job to do it, but if they cannot do it, then what?
Well, it's not just training. You would need American forces in some form or other at the front lines. Because another element of this, our air campaign against ISIS has been extremely minimal. And one reason for that, if you don't have spotters on the ground, you don't know who you're hitting, you don't have enough targets. So again, this goes to the fact you're going to have to put some Americans at risk. And the president just doesn't want to do that. It's a legacy project of his to have quit the war in Iraq, which created this downward spiral and this mess we're in now. And he's not going to reverse himself on that.
You know, I would just report back what I heard General Michael Hayden say last week, and that is Iraq as a state no longer functions. We need to recognize that, and we need to embrace entities in that region that actually could form the backbone of another national entity like the Kurds, who not only I think do a better job. I think we not only do a better job of defending us against ISIL, but also be a bulwark against Iran.
But the Kurds, they're not going to invade Mosul and take it back. They're not going to invade Ramadi and take it back. That's just a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. So the alternatives here are either to let the Iraqi government continue to go into the arms of Iran and the Iranian militias, or give the Iraqi government the support it desperately wants and needs to try to create a force that won't be rejected by the
Sunnis. Tell you what, gentlemen, I think the president stated the obvious. There is no plan. And we just put the poll up there. 71% of the American people see it that way as well. To be continued. Rich, thank you. Bernard, thanks to you as well. And we'll see whether or not the Iraqis have the will in time. To date, there is no evidence.